Wonderful. All right. Shalom, my spot. Pray all is well. Pray everyone is well. Today, like I was saying, we're gonna just go over the book of Esther, but we're gonna read it in its entirety with the additions. Again, if you look in the Apocrypha, you have the additions to Esther, and I think they let you know exactly where those additions fit into the actual book of Esther, into the chapters. So the Septuagint, we have the Britain Septuagint. It actually has it in its entirety broken down already. So we're going to read it in its entirety. And again, while we're reading, there's a lot of nuggets in there, but we're just going to read through this entirety. There's a lot of nuggets. So of course, we're in the living room. If there's any color commentary, please, again, it's interactive. We're in the living room. Just chime in. Most High places anything on your heart while we're reading. So again, we're going to read through the entirety of the book of Esther with the additions included in there as well. I get it, put him in, right?
You did, but he left and then tried to join.
Okay. All right. So, and this is what we did anyway. When we came together in assemblies and things like that, of course, we would read from the book of the law. And this is part of the Torah and the Tanakh. So we're going to go ahead and read this prayerfully. We'll be able to get through it. Again, after each chapter, I'll ask, does anybody have anything to add or anything that they, that stands out or whatever the case may be. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and read it again with the additions included in this season of Parariyam or Purim. All praises. So starting out, of course, the Masoretic starts with that first chapter, but the addition that is added is actually from chapter 11, verse 2 to chapter 12, verse 6. This is the additions added, and again, it's something new because again, we didn't know that the Most High gave Mordecai a dream about this entire thing, but this just breaks it down. So this is the additions to Esther in the beginning, starting from chapter 11, verse 2 through 12, verse 6. And it reads, in the second year of the reign of Artaxerxes, the great king, on the first day of Nisan, Mordecai, and you'll hear me say the Lashawan names, the Hebrew names, Mordecai. I know it says Mordecai in the text, but I know it's Mordecai in the Lashawan. And of course, instead of saying Esther, because Esther is a derivative of Ishtar with pagan gods, so I really don't want to speak that. So I'm going to give her Hebraic name, which is Hadasah. So again, in the second year of the reign of Artaxerxes, the great king, on the first day of Nisan, for those that just came on, we're reading through the book of Esther. Mordecai, the son of Jairus, the son of Simeus, the son of Sisaias of the tribe of Benjamin, a Jew dwelling in the city Susa, a great man serving in the king's palace, saw a vision. Now he was of the captivity which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried captive from Jerusalem with Jeconias, the king of Judea. And this was his dream. Behold, voices and a noise, thunders and earthquake, tumult upon the Aratas, or the earth. And behold, two great serpents came forth, both ready for conflict. And there came from them a great voice. And by their voice every nation was prepared for battle, even to fight against the nation of the just. And behold, a day of darkness and blackness, tribulation and anguish, affliction and great tumult upon the earth. And all the righteous nation was troubled, fearing their own afflictions, and they prepared to die, and cried to the Most High. And from their cry there came, as it were, a great river from a little fountain, even much water. And light and the sun arose, and the lowly were exalted, and devoured the honorable. And Mordecai, who had seen this vision and what the Most High designed to do, having awoke, kept it in his heart, and desired by all means to interpret it, even till night. And Mordecai rested quiet in the palace with Gabbatha and Thara, the king's two chamberlains, eunuchs who guarded the palace. And he heard their reasonings and searched out their plans, and learned that they were preparing to lay hands on King Artaxerxes. And he informed the king concerning them. And the king examined the two chamberlains, and they confessed and were executed. And the king wrote these things for a memorial. Also Mordecai wrote concerning these matters. And the king commanded Mordecai to attend in the palace, and gave him gifts for this service. And Haman, the son of Amadathes, the Buzian, was honorable in the sight of the king. And he endeavored to hurt Mordecai and his people because of the two chamberlains of the king. All right, and now we get into the first chapter here in the Masoretic. And it came to pass after these things in the days of Artaxerxes. This Artaxerxes ruled over 127 provinces from India. In those days, when King Artaxerxes was on the throne in the city of Susa, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast to his friends and the other nations, and to the nobles of the Persians and Medes, and the chief of the satraps, and the satraps are just governors. And after this, after he had shown to them the wealth of his kingdom and the abundant glory of his wealth, during 180 days, when I say the days of the marriage feast were completed, the king made a banquet to the nations who were present in the city 6 days in the court of the king's house, which was adorned with hangings of fine linen and flax on cords of fine linen and purple, fastened to golden and silver studs on pillars of Parian marble and stone. There were golden and silver couches on a pavement of emerald stone and of pearl and of Parian stone, and open work coverings variously flowered, having roses worked round about. Gold and silver cups, and a small cup of carbuncle set out of the value of 30,000 talents, abundant and sweet wine, which the king himself drank. Verse 8, and this banquet was not according to the appointed law, but so the king would have it, and he charged the stewards to perform his will and that of the company. Also, the Septuagint says Aston, but we know it's Vashti. Also, Vashti the queen made a banquet for the women in the palace where King Artaxerxes dwelt. Verse 10, now on the 7th day, the king, being merry, told Haman and Bazan and Thara and Barazai and Zalthotha and Abatazah and Tharaba, the 7 chamberlains, servants of King Artaxerxes, to bring in the queen to him, to enthrone her and crown her with the diadem, and to show her to the princes, and her beauty to the nations, for she was beautiful. But Queen Vashti hearkened not to him to come with the chamberlains. So the king was grieved and angered, and he said to his friends, thus has Vashti spoken. Pronounce therefore upon this case law and judgment. So Archesius and Sarsatheus and Malasir, the princes of the Persians and Medes, who were near the king, who sat chief in rank by the king, drew near to him, and reported to him according to the laws how it was proper to do to Queen Vashti, because she had not done the things commanded of the king by the chamberlains. And Micaiah said to the king and to the princes, Queen Vashti has not wronged the king only, but also all the king's rulers and princes, for he has told them the words of the queen and how she disobeyed the king. As then said she refused to obey King Artaxerxes. So this day shall the other ladies of the chiefs of the Persians and Medes, having heard what she said to the king, dare in the same way to dishonor their husbands. If then it seem good to the king, let him make a royal decree, and let it be written according to the laws of the Medes and Persians, and let him not alter it. And let not the queen come in to him any more, and let the king give her royalty to a woman better than she. And let the law of the king which he shall have made be widely proclaimed in his kingdom. And so shall all the women give honor to their husbands, from the poor even to the rich. And the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did as Micaiah had said, and sent into all his kingdom through the several provinces according to their language, in order that men might be feared in their own houses. And after this, the king's anger was pacified, and he no more mentioned Vashti, bearing in mind what she had said and how he had condemned her. Then the servants of the king said, "Let there be sought for the king chaste and beautiful young virgins, and let the king appoint local governors in all the provinces of his kingdom, and let them select fair and chaste young damsels, and bring them to the city Susa in the women's apartment, and let them be consigned to the king's chamberlain and keeper of the women, and let things for purification and other attendants be given to them. And let the woman who shall please the king be queen instead of Vashti." And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now there was a Jew, and we're on chapter 2, was it verse 5? Now there was a Jew in the city Susa, and his name was Mordecai, the son of Jairus, the son of Simeas, the son of Cisseus of the tribe of Benjamin, who had been brought a prisoner from Jerusalem, which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried into captivity. And he had a foster child, daughter of Amminadab, his father's brother, and her name was Hadasah. And when her parents were dead, he brought her up for a wife for himself, and the damsel was beautiful. And because the king's ordinance was published, many damsels were gathered to the city Susa under the hand of Guy. And Hadasah was brought to Guy, the keeper of the women, and the damsel pleased him, and she found favor in his sight. And he hastened to give her the things for purification and her portion, and the 7 maidens appointed her out of the palace. And he treated her and her maidens well in the women's apartment. But Hadasah discovered not her family nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her not to tell. But Mordecai used to walk every day by the women's court to see what would become of Hadasah. Now this was the time for a virgin to go into the king, when she should have fulfilled 12 months. For so are the days of purification fulfilled, 6 months while they are anointing themselves with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with spices and women's purifications. And then the damsel goes into the king, and the officer to whomsoever he shall give the command will bring her to come in with him from the women's apartment to the king's chamber. She enters in the evening, and in the morning she departs to the second women's apartment, where Guy, the king's chamberlain, is keeper of the women, and she goes not in to the king again, unless she should be called by name. So remember that. Okay, she has to be called by name. Verse 15, second chapter. And when the time was fulfilled for Hadasah, the daughter of Amminadab, the brother of Mordecai's father, to go into the king, she neglected nothing which the chamberlain, the women's keeper, commanded. For Hadasah found grace in the sight of all that looked upon her. So Hadasah went into King Artaxerxes in the 12th month, which is Adar, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Hadasah, and she found favor beyond all the virgins, and he put on her the queen's crown. And the king made a banquet for all his friends and great men for 7 days. And he highly celebrated the marriage of Hadasah, and he made a release to those who were under his dominion. But Mordecai served in the palace. Now Hadasah had not discovered her kindred, for so Mordecai commanded her to fear the Most High and perform his commandments as when she was with him. And Hadasah changed not her manner of life. So she didn't change just because she was married to this Persian. She continued to follow the law, statutes, commandments. Verse 21. And 2 chamberlains of the king, the chiefs of the bodyguard, were grieved because Mordecai was promoted, and they sought to kill King Artaxerxes. And the matter was discovered to Mordecai, and he made it known to Hadasah, and she declared to the king the matter of the conspiracy. And the king examined the 2 chamberlains and hanged them. And the king gave orders to make a note for a memorial in the royal records of the good offices of Mordecai as a commendation. And after this, King Artaxerxes highly honored Haman, son of Ammedathes, the Buzian, and exalted him and set his seat above all his friends. And all in the palace did him obeisance, for so the king had given orders to do so. But Mordecai did not do him obeisance. Where are we? And we're in the third chapter. So before we go on, is there any questions, comments, concerns, anything pertaining to anything we just read? If not, we'll move on. This should be pretty quick. All praises. And again, we're in the third chapter of the book of Esther or Hadasah. We're at I'll read that third verse again. Actually, the second verse again. And all in the palace did him obeisance, to Haman, of course. For so the king had given orders to do so, but Mordecai did not do him obeisance. Verse 3, and they in the king's palace said to Mordecai, Mordecai, why do you transgress the commands of the king? Verse 4, thus they spoke daily to him, but he hearkened not unto them. So they represented to Haman that Mordecai resisted the commands of the king. Mordecai had shown to them that he was a Judean. And when Haman understood that Mordecai did not obeisance to him, he was greatly enraged and took counsel to destroy utterly all the Judeans who were under the rule of Artaxerxes. And he made a decree in the 12th year of the reign of Artaxerxes and cast lots daily and monthly to slay in one day the race of Mordecai. And the lot fell on the 14th day of the month, which is Adar, or the 12th month. And he spoke to King Artaxerxes, saying, there is a nation scattered among the nations in all your kingdoms, and their laws differ from those of all the other nations, and they disobey the laws of the king. All right. And it is not expedient for the king to let them alone. If it seem good to the king, let him make a decree to destroy them, and I will remit into the king's treasury 10,000 talents of silver in the hands of Haman to seal the decrees against the Jews. And the verse 10, and the king took off his ring and gave it into the hands of Haman to seal the decrees against the Judeans. And the king said to Haman, keep the silver and treat the nation as you will. So the king's recorders were called in the first month on the 13th day, and they wrote as Haman commanded to the captains and governors in every province from India even to Ethiopia, to 127 provinces, and to the rulers of the nations according to their several languages in the name of King Artaxerxes. And the message was sent by posts throughout the kingdom of Artaxerxes to destroy utterly the race of the Judeans on the first day of the 12th month, which is Adar, and to plunder their goods. So it's Haman, has hatred for it and is looking to destroy. And Artaxerxes, not understanding what the whole deal, is just signing off on this and telling them to, proclaim this throughout all the provinces. And this is going to come up again. So now we're going into the additions to Esther chapter 13. Okay. And it reads, and the following is the copy of the letter. The great king Artaxerxes writes thus to the rulers and inferior governors of 127 provinces from India even to Ethiopia, who hold authority under him, ruling over many nations and having obtained dominions over the whole world. I was minded, not elated by the confidence of power, but ever conducting myself with great moderation and with gentleness, to make the lives of my subjects continually tranquil, desiring both to maintain the kingdom quiet and orderly to its utmost limits, and to restore the peace desired by all men. But when I had inquired of my counselors how this should be brought to pass, Haman, who excels in soundness of judgment among us, and has been manifestly well inclined without wavering and with unshaken fidelity, and has obtained the second post in the kingdom, informed us that a certain ill-disposed people is mixed up with all the tribes throughout the world, opposed in their laws to every other nation, and continually neglecting the commands of the kings, so that the united government blamelessly administered by us is not quietly established. So they trying to say we disrupting stuff. And of course, that's not the case. Having then conceived that this nation alone of all others is continually set in opposition to every man, introducing us introducing as a change a foreign code of laws, and injuriously plotting to accomplish the worst of evils against our interests and against the happily establishment of the monarchy, we have accordingly appointed those who are signified to you in the letters written by Haman, who is set over the public affairs and is our second governor, to destroy them all utterly with their wives and children by the swords of the enemies without pitying or sparing any. Check this out. On the 14th day of the 12th month, Adar. Now, why do you think that is? Okay, let's attack them on their Shabbat. All right. On the 14th day of the 12th month of Adar of the present year, that the people aforetime and now ill disposed to us, having been violently consigned to death in one day, may hereafter secure to us continually a well constituted and quiet state of affairs. They want to come in and attack us on the Shabbat, right? They know we're resting and we're chilling. This now whatever, you know, and of course putting all this on us, people who haven't done anything, all because this one man, you know, he got disrespected by Mordecai. So here we go. Mm-hmm. Right, he felt disrespected. Yes, and the copies of the letters were published in every province, and an order was given to all the nations to be ready against that day. And the business was hastened, and that at Susa, and the king and Haman began to drink, but the city was troubled. Now we're in chapter 4. Anything? Any comments, questions, concerns? Any commentary, color commentary?
I got one, but I might be a little too late or too far. Um, from going through Esther. So in chapter 2, at the last verse, now when the plot was investigated and found to be so, they were both hanged on gallows, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles in the King's presence. So that's talk the books of the Chronicles of the King's presence. Let's talk about not our Chronicles, but let's talk about their
Right.
Chronicles.
Their
But
chronicles.
but the point that I wanted to really like point out or put emphasis is that these two servants, these two eunuchs, these two keepers of the guard, keepers of the door, you know what I'm saying, they were hanged. And within our laws, there's a law concerning concerning hanging that I just wrote down in my physical book. It's Deuteronomy 21, 22 to 30, 23.
Which
Hold
one was
on.
that? Deuteronomy what?
Deuteronomy 21, 22 to 23. And I got it right here. If a man has committed a sin worthy of death and is put to death, and you hang him on a tree, his corpse shall not hang all night on the tree, but you shall surely bury him on the same day. For he who has hanged his is accursed of Elohim, so that you do not defile the land that the Most High your power gives you as inheritance. Um, I just wanted to point that out, and pretty much this to apply it to this text, right? We don't know how. It doesn't say how long these two men. I'm just using my imagination and my thought process. Mordecai was a Jew, was a Judean, was an Israelite, and he had understanding of commandments, and he had understanding of the laws. He had understanding of our heritage. He would know of this command of this law of someone being hanged and they can't be left all night. I'm just using again my imagination, my thought process. He could have purposely left those men on the hanging on a tree to bring forth a curse upon their captives. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out. I could be wrong. I could be stretching it. You know what I'm saying? And because the Median Persian Empire didn't last long. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So I'm just throwing it out there that Mordecai could have just purposely had these men hanging on a tree overnight, with brought forth a curse upon this land that was dredged out. I'm just I just want to throw that possibility out. I could be wrong.
Because even involved, yeah, because even though it was pretty much a law, pretty much for us, he was the one that did discover them. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew they were, Medes, Persians, things like that. So yeah, could be possible to bring about that curse upon the land, right? Con, all praises. Bada. Anyone else? All right. If not, we shall proceed and continue to rock the mic. Praises. All right, we're in chapter 4 now. We're in chapter 4. And just pardon me, like these words in this book, in the Septuagint, are very, very small. So, if I trip up a little bit, that's why. So we are book of Hadasah, chapter 4, starting at verse 1. It says, But Mordecai, having perceived what was done, rent his garments, and put on sackcloth, and sprinkled dust upon himself. And having rushed forth through the open street of the city, he cried with a loud voice, A nation that has done no wrong is going to be destroyed. And he came to the king's gate and stood, for it was not lawful for him to enter into the palace wearing sackcloth and ashes. And in every province where the letters were published, there was crying and lamentation and great mourning on the part of the Judeans. They spread for themselves sackcloth and ashes. So, our people, we're mourning because, these people are looking to destroy us and we haven't done anything wrong. They're looking to destroy us based on one man's, how him feeling disrespected. Verse 4. And the queen's maids and chamberlains went in and told her. And when she had heard what was done, she was disturbed. And she sent to clothe Mordecai and take away his sackcloth. But he consented not. So Hadasah called for her chamberlain, Acrathius, who waited upon her, and she sent to learn the truth from Mordecai. And Mordecai shewed him what was done, and the promise which Haman had made the king of 10,000 talents to be paid into the treasury, that he might destroy the Judeans. Verse 8. And he gave him the copy of the writing that was published in Susa concerning their destruction to show to Hadasah, and told him to charge her to go in and entreat the king, and to beg him for the people, remembering, said he, the days of your low estate, how you were nursed by my hand, because Haman, who holds the next place to the king, has spoken against us for death. Do you call upon Yah? Do you call upon Yah and speak to the king concerning us to deliver us from death? So Mordecai is asking Hadasah to speak to the king to keep us from death. Excuse me. Verse 9. So Acrathius went in and told her all these words, and Hadasah said to Acrathius, Go to Mordecai, saying, All the nations of the empire know that whoever man or woman shall go into the king, into the inner court, uncalled, that person cannot live. Only to whomsoever the king shall stretch out his golden scepter, he shall live. And I have not been called to go into the king for these 30 days. And Acrathius reported to Mordecai all the words of Hadasah. Then Mordecai said to Acrathius, Go and say to her, Hadasah, say not to yourself that you alone will escape in the kingdom, more than all the other Judeans. For if you shall refuse to hearken on this occasion, help and protection will be to the Judeans from another quarter, but you and your father's house will perish. Listen to this. And who knows if you have been made queen for this very occasion? Verse 15. And Hadasah sent the man that came to her to Mordecai, saying, Go and assemble the Judeans that are in Susa, and fast you from me, and eat not and drink not for 3 days, night and day. And I also and my maidens will fast. And then I will go into the king contrary to the law, even if I must die. So Mordecai went and did all that Hadasah commanded him. And now we have an addition to Esther. This addition is coming from the additions to Esther, chapters 13, verse 8 to chapters 14, verse 19. So this is the additions. And he besought Yah, making mention of all the works of Yah. And he said, Yah Elohim, or power, king, ruling over all. For all things are in your power, and there is no one that shall oppose you in your purpose to save Yashara'al. For you have made the heaven and the earth, and every wonderful thing in the world under heaven, under Shemayim. And you are Adonai, or master of all, and there is no one who shall resist you, Yah. You know all things. You know, Yah, that it is not in insolence, nor haughtiness, nor love of glory that I have done this, to refuse obeisance to the haughty Haman. For I would gladly have kissed the soles of his feet for the safety of Yashara'al. But I have done this that I might not set the glory of man above the glory of the Most High. And I will not worship anyone except you, my Adonai, my master. And I will not do these things in haughtiness. And now, O Yah, Elohim, the king, the Elohim of Abram, spare your people, for our enemies are looking upon us to our destruction, and they have desired to destroy your ancient inheritance. Do not overlook your peculiar people, whom you have redeemed for yourself out of the land of Egypt. So, again, we ain't making this stuff up. We are the redeemed of the Most High. We are his peculiar people, his inheritance. So we're not making this up. Hearken to my prayer and be propitious to thine inheritance, and turn our mourning into gladness, that we may live and sing praise to your name, O Yah. And do not utterly destroy the mouth of them that praise you, O Yah. All praises. All praises. And I believe now we're going into the additions as well. The additions, chapter 14. Excuse me. This is chapter 14 of the additions of Esther. And all Yashara'al cried with all their might, for their death was before that. Well, before we go into that, any questions, comments, concerns in this prayer that we just read? All praises. All right, we will continue. And then again, this is the additions, chapter 14, I believe. And all Yashara'al cried with all their might, for their death was before their eyes. And Queen Hadasah betook herself for refuge to Yah, being taken as it were in the agony of death. And having taken off her glorious apparel, she put on garments of distress and mourning. And instead of grand perfumes, she filled her head with ashes and dung. And she greatly brought down her body. And she filled every place of her glad adorning with the torn curls of her hair. So she, she's in distress too about this whole thing, and putting on sackcloth and ashes and dung and tearing out her hair, for lamentation over what's taking place. These people want to destroy us. And it continues to read, and she besought Yah Elohim of Yashara'al and said, O my Adonai, O my master, you alone are our king. All praises. Help me who am destitute and have no helper but you, for my danger is near at hand. I have heard from my birth in the tribe of my kindred that you, Adonai, took Yashara'al out of all the nations and our fathers out of all their kindred for a perpetual inheritance. So the Most High set us apart and has wrought for them all that you have said, and now we have sinned. So this goes back to like Leviticus 26:41, the consequences of our iniquity. If we humble ourselves and acknowledge the consequences of our iniquity. And she says, and has wrought for them all that house says, and now we have sinned before you, and you have delivered us into the hands of our enemies because we honored their gods. So again, this is why we are in the hands of our enemies. This is why we are in captivity. Why? Because we look to honor their gods and not our power, right? And what's the, first commandment? You know what I'm saying? You shall have no other gods before him. So this is why we're in captivity. And now we have sinned before you, and you have delivered us into the hands of our enemies because we honored their gods. You are righteous, O Yah, but now they have not been contented with the bitterness of our slavery, but have laid their hands on the hands of their idols in order to abolish the decree of your mouth and utterly to destroy your inheritance and to stop the mouth of them that praise you. We can say that even now, right? This is why they've changed a lot of things in the text, because they don't want us to praise the Most High. All praises. And to extinguish the glory of your house and your altar, and to open the mouth of the Gentiles, of the nations, to speak the praises of vanities, and in order that a mortal king should be admired forever. O Yah, do not resign your scepter to them that are not, and let them not laugh at our fall, but turn their counsel against themselves, and make an example of him who has begun to injure us. Remember us, O Yah, manifest yourself in the time of our affliction, and encourage me, O King of gods, and ruler of all dominion. Put harmonious speech into my mouth before the lion, and turn his heart to hate him that fights against us, to the utter destruction of him and of them that consent with him. But deliver us by your hand, and help me who am destitute, and have none but you, O Yah. You know all things, and know that I hate the glory of transgressors, and that I abhor the couch of the uncircumcised and of every stranger. Check this out. You know my necessity, for I abhor the symbol of my proud station. So she's saying, I abhor what I've been given. She's not pleased with where she is being the queen, right? She says, I abhor it as, I'm sorry, wait a minute. You know my necessity, for I abhor the symbol of my proud station, which is upon my head in the days of my splendor. I abhor it as a menstruous cloth, and I wear it not in the days of my tranquility. And your handmaid has not eaten at the table of Haman, and I have not honored the banquet of the king, neither have I drunk wine of libations. Neither has your handmaid rejoiced since the day of my promotion until now, except in you, O Yah Elohim of Abram. O Most High, who has power over all, hearken to the voice of the desperate, and deliver us from the hand of them that devise mischief, and deliver me from my fear. All praises. This is a prayer we can be praying right now. You can be praying right now. Any questions, comments, concerns? We're about to go into chapter 5, I believe. Yeah. Oh, actually, we're going to be going. Actually, it starts out with the additions, chapter 15. Additions, chapter 15. Then it'll go into chapter 5. But any questions, comments, concerns?
That one you just read, that was 14.
That was, the additions, chapter 14. Yep.
Okay. I'm with you. Thank you.
All praise. All right. So with that, I'm going to go into it. Like I said, this right here starts off with the additions, chapter 15, I believe. And then it'll go into chapter 5, Masoretic. And it reads, and it came to pass on the third day, when she had ceased praying, that she put off her mean dress and put on her glorious apparel, and being splendidly arrayed, and having called upon the Most High, the overseer and preserver of all things, She took her two maids, and she leaned upon one as a delicate female, and the other followed, bearing her train. And she was blooming in the perfection of her beauty, and her face was cheerful, as it were benevolent, but her heart was straitened for fear. And having passed through all the doors, she stood before the king, and he was sitting upon his royal throne, and he had put on all his glorious apparel, covered all over with gold and precious stones, and was very terrible. And having raised his face resplendent with glory, he looked with intense anger. And the queen fell and changed her color as she fainted. And she bowed herself upon the head of the maid that went before her. But the Most High changed the spirit of the king to gentleness. And in intense feeling, he sprang from off his throne and took her into his arms until she recovered. And he comforted her with peaceable words and said to her, "What is the matter, Hadasah? I am your brother. Be of good cheer. You shall not die, for our command is openly declared to you. Draw near." And having raised the golden scepter, he laid it upon her neck and embraced her and said, "Speak to me." And she said to him, "I saw you, my master, as an angel of the Most High, and my heart was troubled for fear of your glory. For you, my master, are to be wondered at, and your face is full of grace." And while she was speaking, she fainted and fell. So she was, basically gassing them up. Gassing them up. All praises. She fainted and fell. Then the king was troubled, and all his servants comforted her. I believe now we're going into chapter 5 at verse 3, I believe. Chapter 5 at verse 3.
It's
And the
just
king
interesting,
said,
man. You see the Most High began to answer her prayer.
Khan,
Yeah.
You see how
Yeah.
in an instant how the Most High changed his countenance, changed his spirit.
Yeah, that was his favor because she had prostrated herself correctly when she prayed.
Khan, exactly right, exactly right. And I mean, just like that, because you see before it says that he looked with intense anger, right?
Yeah,
Because she's coming to him unannounced,
yeah,
right?
yep.
So now he's angry, like, "Yo, come on, woman, what the deal?" But the Most High changed his heart like that. And
Yes.
there's a scripture. There's a scripture that speaks about that. How the Most High, I think, changes the hearts of kings or something like that. Whatever the case may be, I can't remember. I'm not sure if it's a Proverbs or not.
Yes. Well, he did the opposite with Pharaoh.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's why I always say, man, as far as us, as far as, us, Yashara, man, the things that are taking place now in the world, and, whoever's in office and this now, whatever, let me tell you something. It's because whoever's there is because the Most High wants them there for whatever purpose or whatever the case may be, right? The voting and the electoral colleges and all, that stuff ain't got nothing to do with nothing. The man is there because the Most High wants him there. And so, we don't have to be in fear of anything. The Most High is turning the hearts of these kings however he chooses. So we don't have to be in fear, man. All we have to do is trust the process that the Most High is implementing.
I got the precept. Proverbs 21, verse 1. The
Hold
heart
on a
of the
second.
kings.
Hold on a sec, brother. Hold on a sec, brother. 1 second. Proverbs 21. I knew it was in Proverbs. Con. All praises. There it is. Go
Uh,
ahead,
the king's heart is like channels of water in the hand of Yah. He turns it wherever he wishes.
Here it is. Thank you for that, man. Thank you. I knew it was a Proverbs. All praises. That's it right there.
Yep.
Most High is turning the king's heart wherever he wished, man.
Don't put your faith in them because the Most High the Most High's will gonna be done regardless.
Yeah, it is.
Ain't no voting gonna change that or nothing. The Most High will gonna be done regardless.
It is. All praises. All praises. We don't have to be in fear. I know sometimes it looks, tangibly it looks crazy. It looks like things are, but I'm telling you, man, the Most High is working. He's doing this thing. You know what I mean? We just have to trust the process. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but we just need to trust the process. And, just like that text says in Isaiah, I believe it's 26, he will keep you in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on him because you trust him. So even in the midst of what seems like a storm, you just trust the Most High. He will keep you in perfect shalom. He will keep you in that perfect peace. All praises. Because he's controlling everything. He's at the helm. You just have to trust the process. All praises. So we're at chapter 5, verse 3. And the king said, What will you, Hadasah, and what is your request? Ask even to the half of my kingdom, and it shall be yours. And Hadasah said, Today is my great day. If then it seem good to the king, let both him and Haman come to the feast which I will prepare this day. And the king said, Hasten Haman hither, that we may perform the word of Hadasah. So they both come to the feast of which Hadasah had spoken. And at the banquet the king said to Hadasah, What is your request, Queen Hadasah? Speak, and you shall have all that you require. And she said, My request and my petition are, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, let the king and Haman come again tomorrow to the feast which I shall prepare for them, and tomorrow I will do the same. Verse 9. So Haman went out from the king, very glad and merry. But when Haman saw Mordecai the Judean in the court, he was greatly enraged. And having gone into his own house, he called his friends and his wife Zosara. And he showed them his wealth and the glory with which the king had invested him, and how he had caused him to take precedence and bear chief rule in the kingdom. And Haman said, The queen has called no one to the feast with the king but me, and I am invited tomorrow. My man feeling himself. But these things please me not, while I see Mordecai the Judean in the court. And Zosara his wife and his friends said to him, Let there be a gallows made for you of 50 cubits, and in the morning do you speak to the king, and let Mordecai be hanged on the gallows. But do you go into the feast with the king and be merry. And the saying pleased Haman, and the gallows were prepared. But Yah removed sleep. Well, so that's the end of 5, I believe. So now we're going into chapter 6 of Hadasah or Esther. Any questions, anything? That was just a little bit. So now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes. But Yah removed sleep from the king that night, and he told his servant to bring in the books, the registers of daily events, to read to him. And he found the records written concerning Mordecai, how he had told the king concerning the 2 chamberlains of the king when they were keeping guard and sought to lay hands on Artaxerxes. So see how the Most High just did that? Here it is, Haman and his boys and his wife were speaking about, hanging Mordecai. And that very same night, the Most High, gives the king a sleepless night and tells him, look, you know what, go bring the records. I want to see the records of the daily events. And he's reading through these records and he sees what Mordecai did in order to save his life, in order to save the king's life. Isn't that something? In the same night. All praises. Verse 3. Okay, verse 3, chapter 6. Excuse me. And the king said, What honor or favor have we done to Mordecai? And the king's servant said, You have not done anything to him. And while the king was inquiring about the kindness of Mordecai, behold, Haman was in the court. And the king said, Who was in the court? Now Haman was come in to speak to the king that he should hang Mordecai on the gallows which he had prepared. And the king's servant said, Behold, Haman stands in the court. And the king said, Call him. Excuse me. Verse 6. And the king said to Haman, What shall I do to the man whom I wish to honor? And Haman said within himself, Whom would the king honor but myself? My man, feeling himself. And he said to the king, As for the man whom the king wishes to honor, let the king's servants bring the robe of fine linen, which the king puts on, and the horse on which the king rides, and let him give it to one of the king's noble friends, and let him array the man whom the king loves, and let him mount him on the horse, and proclaim through the street of the city, saying, this shall be done to every man whom the king honors. Then the king said to Haman, you have well said. So do to Mordecai the Judean, who waits in the palace, and let not a word of what you have spoken be neglected. Verse 11. So Haman took the robe and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and mounted him on the horse, and went through the street of the city, and proclaimed, saying, this shall it be to every man whom the king wishes to honor. So Haman had to honor the man that he hated. All right. Verse 12. And Mordecai returned to the palace, but Haman went home mourning and having his head covered. And Haman related the events that had befallen him to Zosara his wife, and to his friends. And his friends and his wife said to him, if Mordecai be of the race of the Judeans, and you have begun to be humble before him, you will assuredly fall, and you will not be able to withstand him. For the living Elohim, for the living power, the living God is with him. While they were yet speaking, the chamberlains arrived to hasten Haman to the banquet which Hadasah had prepared. So isn't that funny how his wife and all of them, they said, if Mordecai be lifted up and you be humble, you're going to fall, because the living Elohim is with him. Notice how they said the living Elohim. Because all the idols and the gods of the nations are vain. They're vain. They're not living. They said the living Elohim is with them. So they know about us, man. They know about it. They've been knowing about us. All praises. So we're at chapter 7.
Yeah, because
Okay,
in the first chapter, didn't they say these peculiar people got way different ways than everybody else? They way different gods, so they've been known.
Here it is. There it is. We know this again. The Most High has set us apart. So again, with us in the awakening, when we come in to seek Him 10 times the more now, because He's given us, another chance. We seeking Him 10 times the more. We have to be set apart. I know we live in the midst of the construct. We live in the midst of the nations. But what sets us apart? What sets us apart? Keeping these laws, statutes, commandments, man. These laws, statutes, commandments is nothing like what the nations are doing. That's what sets us apart. That's why we have to keep ourselves, away from these traditions of man and things like that, because they're vain. They're vain. All praises. We are a set apart people. We are set apart people because of the heritage that the Most High has given us to keep. All praises. So we're at, we're at chapter 7. I'm going to go ahead and take a swig of this real quick. We're at chapter 7 now. I don't think there's any additions in the midst of this at all. So here we are, chapter 7, starting at verse 1. So the king and Haman went in to drink with the queen. And the king said to Hadasah at the banquet on the second day, what is it, Queen Hadasah? And what is your request? And what is your petition? And it shall be done for you to the half of my kingdom. Verse 3. And she answered and said, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, let my life be granted to my petition, and my people to my request. For both I and my people are sold for destruction and pillage and slavery, both we and our children, for bondmen and bondwomen. And I consented not to it, for the slanderer is not worthy of the king's palace. And the king said, who is this that has dared to do this thing? And Hadasah said, the adversary is Haman, this wicked man. Then Haman was troubled before the king and the queen. And the king rose up from the banquet to go into the garden. And Haman began to entreat the queen, for he saw that he was in an evil case. Verse 8. And the king returned from the garden, and Haman had fallen upon the bed, entreating the queen. And the king said, will you even force my wife in my house? And when Haman heard it, he changed countenance. And Bugathan, one of the chamberlains, said to the king, behold, Haman has also prepared a gallows for Mordecai, who spoke concerning the king. And a gallows of 50 cubits high has been set up in the premises of Haman. Now, my man want to instigate. We said, where are we at? Okay. Wait a minute. Where are we? Behold, Haman, who has also prepared a gallows for Mordecai, who spoke concerning the king, and a gallows of 50 cubits high has been set up in the premises of Haman. And the king said, let him be hanged thereon. Verse 10. So Haman was hanged on the gallows that had been prepared for Mordecai, and then the king's wrath was appeased. And in that day, King Artaxerxes gave to Hadasah all that belonged to Haman the slanderer. And Mordecai was called by the king, for Hadasah had shown that he was related to her. And the king took the ring which he had taken away from Haman and gave it to Mordecai. And Hadasah appointed Mordecai over all that had been Haman's. The wealth of the wicked is laid up for the just. We're in chapter 8 now, right? We're in chapter 8. Sorry, any questions, comments, concerns concerning what we read thus far? All right, so we're going to continue chapter 8. Verse 3. And she spoke yet again to the king and fell at his feet and besought him to do away the mischief of Haman and all that he had done against the Judeans. Then the king stretched out to Hadasah the golden scepter, and Hadasah arose to stand near the king. And Hadasah said, if it seem good to you, and I have found favor in your sight, let an order be sent that the letters sent by Haman may be reversed, that were written for the destruction of the Judeans who are in your kingdom. For how shall I be able to look upon the afflictions of my people, and how shall I be able to survive the destruction of my kindred? And the king said to Hadasah, if I have given and freely granted you all that was Haman's, and hanged him on a gallows, because he laid his hands upon the Judeans, what do you yet further seek? Write you also in my name, as it seems good to you, and seal it with my ring. For whatever orders are written at the command of the king and sealed with my ring, it is not lawful to gainsay them again. So basically what he's saying, look, I've already sent out this decree. I sealed it with my ring. I can't change it. That's basically what he's saying. Verse 9. So the scribes were called in the first month, which is Nisan, on the 23rd day of the same year, and orders were written to the Judeans, whatever the king had commanded, to the local governors and chiefs of the satraps from India even to Ethiopia, 127 satraps, according to the several provinces, according to their dialects. And they were written by order of the king and sealed with his ring. And they sent the letters by the post, wherein he charged them to use their own laws in every city, and to help each other, and to treat their adversaries and those who attack them as they pleased. On one day in all the kingdom of Artaxerxes, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is Adar. So again, he's saying he can't change it. He's already sent those law, and they can govern their provinces as they please. In all these provinces, they can govern. That's what the satrap is, a governor. They can govern their provinces as they please, and he's basically saying, I can't really change what has already gone out. So here we are, verse 13 of chapter 8. And the following is the copy of the letter of the orders. So now we're going into the additions, which we're going to additions chapter 16. Additions chapter 16. It says, the great king Artaxerxes sends greeting to the rulers of provinces in 127 satrapies from India to Ethiopia, even to those who are faithful to our interests. Many who have been frequently honored by the most abundant kindness of their benefactors have conceived ambitious designs and not only endeavor to hurt our subjects, but moreover, not being able to bear prosperity, they also endeavor to plot against their own benefactors. And they not only would utterly abolish gratitude from among men, but also, elated by the boastings of men who are strangers to all that is good, they suppose that they shall escape the sin-hating vengeance of the ever-seeing power, Alahayim. And oftentimes, evil exhortation has made partakers of the guilt of shedding innocent blood and has involved in irremediable calamities many of those who were appointed to offices of authority, who had been entrusted with the management of their friends' affairs, while men, by the false sophistry of an evil disposition, have deceived the simple candor of the ruling powers. And it is possible to see this not so much from more ancient traditionary accounts as it is immediately in your power to see it by examining what things have been wickedly perpetrated by the baseness of men unworthily holding power. And it is right to take heed with regard to the future, that we may maintain the government in undisturbed peace for all men, adopting needful changes and ever judging those cases which come under our notice with truly equitable decision. For whereas Haman, a Macedonian, the son of Amadeus, in reality an alien from the blood of the Persians, and differing widely from our mild course of government, having been hospitably entertained by us, obtained so large a share of our universal kindness as to be called our father, and to continue the person next to the royal throne, reverenced of all. He, however, overcome by the pride of his station, endeavored to deprive us of our dominion and our life, having by various and subtle artifices demanded for destruction both Mordecai our deliverer and perpetual benefactor, and Hadasah the blameless consort of our kingdom with their whole nation. For by these methods he thought, having surprised us in a defenseless state, to transfer the dominion of the Persians to the Macedonians. But we find that the Judeans, who have been consigned to destruction by the most abominable of men, are not malefactors, but living according to the justice laws. So this is what they're saying. The Persians are saying. But we find that the Judeans who have been consigned to destruction by the most abominable of men are not malefactors, but living according to the justice laws, and being the sons of the living power of the living God, the Most High and Mighty, who maintains the kingdom to us as well as to our forefathers in the most excellent order. So look at how the Most High gave them eyes to see us. So they're not these are not bad people. That's what they're saying. These are not bad people, right? But they are living according to the justice laws. Okay, that goes back to, was that Deuteronomy 4? Deuteronomy 4, if I may interject a little bit here. Deuteronomy 4 and where are we at? Deuteronomy 4 and is it? Yes. Deuteronomy 4. So just to interject a little bit, Deuteronomy 4, Moses is speaking, unto us from the Most High. Verse 5. See, I have taught you statutes and rules as Yah Ma'alahim commanded me, that you should do them in the land that you are entering to take possession of it. Verse 6, keep them and do them, for that will be your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples, who, when they hear all these statutes, will say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to it as Yah, our Elohim, or our power, is to us whenever we call upon him? This is it right here, verse 8. And what great nation is there that has statutes and rules so righteous as all this law that I set before you today? So then, what you say? Oh, verse 9. Only take care and keep your soul diligently, unless you forget the things that your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and your children's children. So again, when we're keeping law, statutes, commandments, again, that sets us apart, that the other nations will see it. They will see it, and they will see the laws as righteous. Just like we're just reading right here in the addition, chapter 16, right? They said these people are not bad people, but they are living according to the justice laws and being the sons of the living power. So again, it's right there in front of our face. So to continue, in addition, chapter 16, you will therefore, there's no verses on these in the Septuagint, so it says, you will therefore do well in refusing to obey the letters sent by Haman, the son of Amadathes, because he that has done these things has been hanged with his whole family at the gates of Susa. Almighty Elohim having swiftly returned to him a worthy recompense. We enjoin you then, having openly published a copy of this letter in every place, to give the Judeans permission to use their own lawful customs, and to strengthen them, that on the 13th of the 12th month Adar, on the selfsame day, they may defend themselves against those who attack them in a time of affliction. For in the place of the destruction of the chosen race, for in the place of the destruction of the chosen race, Almighty Elohim has granted them this time of gladness. Do you therefore also among your notable feasts keep a distinct day with all festivity, that both now and hereafter it may be a day of deliverance to us and those who are well disposed toward the Persians, but to those that plotted against us a memorial of destruction, and every city and province collectively, which shall not do accordingly, shall be consumed with vengeance by spear and fire. It shall be made not only inaccessible to men, but also most hateful to wild beasts and birds forever. Look how the Most High just changing hearts. And that's from the King Artaxerxes' letter. Right? So now he's giving us decree now to say, you know what? If any other nations come and attack them, because of that other decree that was sent out earlier, if any other nations come and attack them, they can go ahead and defend themselves. They can go ahead and defend themselves. All praises. Where do we leave off? And let the copies be posted in conspicuous places throughout the kingdom. And let all the Judeans be ready against this day to fight against their enemies. All praises. So now we're going to go. Is there any questions, comments, concerns? What we just read? We're actually almost done, y'all. Actually almost done. There's two more chapters? And one of them is very short. All praises. The Most High is going to fight our battles. Like, again, we just have to be patient to wait on the Most High and trust the process. So I think this is chapter, I think this goes into chapter 8 now, right? We're in chapter 8, and we're reading the last few verses of chapter 8. I think it's 14 here. Chapter 8, verse 14. So the horsemen went forth with haste to perform the king's commands, and the ordinance was also published in Susa. And Mordecai went forth robed in the royal apparel, and wearing a golden crown and a diadem of fine purple linen. And the people in Susa saw it and rejoiced. And the Judeans had light and gladness in every city and province wherever the ordinance was published. Wherever the proclamation took place, the Judeans had joy and gladness, feasting and mirth. And check this out. And many of the Gentiles, many of the other nations were circumcised and became, it says, and they became Judeans for fear of the Jews. Now, you can't just become a Judean. It's a bloodline. So they just basically cleaved unto the Judeans, basically. Many of the nations were circumcised and basically cleaved unto the Judeans for fear of the Judeans, because they know we about to wreck shop now. You know, we're able to defend ourselves against these other nations. We about to wreck shop. So again, they see us as a superior nation. So now they cleaving now. They cleaving and seeing what the Most High has done for his people. All right, so now we're at chapter 9. Now we're at chapter 9. Verse 1. For in the 12th month, on the 13th day of the month, which is Adar, the letters written by the king arrived. In that day, the adversaries of the Judeans perished, for no one resisted through fear of them. For the chiefs of the satraps and the princes and the royal scribes honored the Judeans, for the fear of Mordecai lay upon them. For the order of the king was enforced that he should be celebrated in all the kingdom. And in the city Susa, the Judeans slew 500 men, both Pharsanes and Delphon and Phasga and Faradatha and Berea and Sarbaka and Marmasima and Ruphaeus and Arsaeus and Zebuthius, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Buzian, the enemy of the Judeans, and they plundered their property on the same day, and the number of them that perished in Susa was rendered to the king. And the king said to Hadasah, the Judeans have slain 500 men in the city Susa, and how think you have they used them in the rest of the country? What then do you yet ask, that it may be done for you? Verse 13, and Hadasah said to the king, let it be granted to the Judeans so to treat them tomorrow as to hang the 10 sons of Haman. And he permitted it to be so done. And he gave up to the Judeans of the city the bodies of the sons of Haman to hang. And the Judeans assembled in Susa on the 14th day of Adar, and slew 300 men, but plundered no property. And the rest of the Judeans who were in the kingdom assembled and helped one another and obtained rest from their enemies. For they destroyed 15,000 of them on the 13th day of Adar. So one day, 15,000 people. But took no spoil. And they rested on the 14th of the same month and kept it as a day of rest with joy and gladness. All right. Verse 18. And the Judeans in the city Susa assembled also on the 14th day and rested. And they kept also the 15th with joy and gladness. On this account, then, it is that the Judeans dispersed in every foreign land keep the 14th day of Adar as a Kodash, or set apart day, as a holy day with joy, sending portions each to his neighbor. And this is why you have some of us, when we're celebrating Purim, Pawariam, they give gifts to one another on the 14th and the 15th day of the 12th month, Hebraically speaking. All right. So verse 19 again. On this account, then, it is that the Judeans dispersed in every foreign land keep the 14th of Adar as a holy day with joy, sending portions each to his neighbor. Verse 20. And Mordecai wrote these things in a book and sent them to the Judeans, as many as were in the kingdom of Artaxerxes, both them that were near and them that were afar off, to establish these as joyful days, and to keep the 14th and 15th of Adar. For on these days the Judeans obtained rest from their enemies. And as to the month which was Adar, in which a change was made for them from mourning to joy, and from sorrow to a good day, to spend the whole of it in good days of feasting and gladness, sending portions to their friends and to the poor. And the Judeans consented to this accordingly as Mordecai wrote to them, showing how Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Macedonian, fought against them, how he made a decree and cast lots to destroy them utterly, also how he went in to the king, telling him to hang Mordecai. But all the calamities he tried to bring upon the Judeans came upon himself, and he was hanged and his children. Therefore, these days were called Purim, because of the lots. For in their language they are called Purim, or Pawariam, in the Lashawan Kodash, no, set apart tongue. But because of the words of this letter, and because of all they suffered on this account, and all that happened to them, and Mordecai established it, and the Judeans took upon themselves, and upon their seed, and upon those that were joined to them, to observe it, neither would they on any account behave differently. But these days were to be a memorial kept in every generation and city and family and province. And these days of the Purim or Parariam, said they, shall be kept forever, and their memorial shall not fail in any generation. Verse 29. And Queen Hadasah, the daughter of Aminadab, and Mordecai the Judean, wrote all that they had done, and the confirmation of the letter of Purim. And Mordecai and Hadasah the queen appointed a fast for themselves privately, even at the time, also having formed their plan against their own health. And Hadasah established it by a command forever, and it was written for a memorial. All praises. That is the end of verse 9. Any questions, comments, concerns? Any color commentary? And we're just about done. Last chapter. All praises. We shall continue. So this is chapter 10. I think there's only a couple of verses, and then it goes into the additions in the additions of chapter 10. Okay. Chapter 10 says, and the king levied a tax upon his kingdom, both by land and sea, and for his strength and valor, and the wealth and the glory of his kingdom. Behold, they are written in the book of the Persians and Medes for a memorial. And Mordecai was viceroy, or second in command to King Artaxerxes, and was a great man in the kingdom, and honored by the Judeans, and passed his life beloved of all his nation. Now remember, in the beginning, the very beginning, we read the additions, and it said Mordecai had a dream about this whole entire thing. And now all of this stuff is played out, and now he's recalling the dream from the beginning. So this is the additions in chapter 10 of the additions of praises. And it says, and Mordecai said, these things have been done of the Most High. For I remember the dream which I had concerning these matters, for not one particular of them has failed. There was the little fountain which became a river, and there was light and the sun and much water. The river is Hadasah, whom the king married and made queen. And the two serpents are I and Haman. And the nations are those nations that combine to destroy the name of the Judeans. But as for my nation, this is Yashraal, even they that cried to the Most High and were delivered. For Yah delivered his people, and Yah rescued us out of all these calamities. And the Most High wrought such signs and great wonders as have not been done among the nations. Therefore did he ordain two lots, one for the people of the Most High, and one for all the other nations. And these two lots came for an appointed season and for a day of judgment. For an appointed season. Okay. These two lots came for an appointed season. Remember that when we're praying and we're looking to get up out of here. Again, no man knows the day nor the hour when the Son of Man cometh. Only the Most High knows. There is an appointed time for him to send Mashiach and send those angels, to rescue us from these captives. There is an appointed time for that sky to crack. Yes, I believe he is waiting for, maybe there's a certain number of us to come to the fold, to come to the fullness of coming back to the covenant. But I do believe there is an appointed time. Just like that, no man knows that day nor the hour, not even the Son, nor the angels. Only the Most High knows when he's going to tell Mashiach to crack that sky and to come to get us up out of Dodge. So, just like it's saying, and these two lots came for an appointed season for a day of judgment before the Most High, and for all the nations. And the Most High remembered his people and vindicated his inheritance. And they shall observe these days in the month Adar on the 14th and on the 15th day of the month, with an assembly and joy and gladness before the Most High throughout the generations, forever among his people, Yasharal. All praises. And that's the end of editions. And then there's a little blurb in here from which begins chapter 11 of the editions. And it says, in the 4th year of the reign of Ptolemy and Cleopatra, Dositheus, who said that he was a priest and a Levite, and Ptolemy his son, which is kind of crazy to me, brought in the published letter of Purim, which they said existed, and which Lysimachus, the son of Ptolemy, who was in Jerusalem, had interpreted. Okay, I don't know what any of that means, but that is the end. That is the end of the book of Hadasah in its entirety, with the additions included where they're supposed to be. So
he found the letter about Purim and translated it. Basically, he interpreted it.
Oh, and translated it into the Greek.
Know what happened? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's what that's saying. Gotcha. Okay, so he found the letter and interpreted it into the Greek. And this is why we have the Septuagint right now. Okay, gotcha. Thank you for that, brother. Thank you. So any questions, comments, concerns on the reading of book of Hadasah, the book of Esther, pagan Ishtar? You see why they change our names, right? We're in captivity because, of course they were in captivity. You see why they changed our names in captivity to reflect, their gods and their ways. But I just thought, reading the book of Esther is, just reading it over and over again, man, it's always something that comes to the fold. And I would say, all of these feasts that we have, man, why would when you find out who you are and you find out, of course, that the traditions that we've been, carrying on in these constructs are pagan. I mean, we have so many feasts. Now, even though Purim is not an appointed feast, it's a memorial for what was done here. I mean, we have so many feasts. The Most High has allowed us to have so many feasts and so many times of merriment. Why would we want to do anything like the other nations is beyond me. But, it's just a testament of the Most High's goodness towards his people. Again, he may allow some things to happen, but again, just like the text says, many are the afflictions of the righteous, but he shall deliver us out of them all. And, I was just speaking to, my wife last night, when things are taking place and in times of testing or in times of affliction and things of that nature, again, we know these things are tangible, right? They're right in front of us. They're right before us. And it's easy to get downtrodden, or it's easy to get, upset. It's easy to get heavy. That text talks about a garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. The spirit of heaviness is like a depressive state or whatever. But again, the Most High gives us a garment of praise. It's easy to fall into that. But we have to know who we serve. I know Ogdani, on the studies on Sunday, he was going through spiritual warfare. And we have to understand that we are a spiritual people. We are trapped in these earth suits, but we are a spiritual people first. We serve the living Elohim, right? I mean, we are his inheritance. We are his people. We set ourselves up and walked into these curses, but we are still his people, even in the midst of captivity. Again, Esther and them were in the midst of captivity. And time to, going into captivity is because we disobeyed the Most High. So they were in the midst of captivity. The Most High heard the prayers of Mordecai. The Most High heard the prayers of Hadasah, and he entreated them. Right? He entreated them. So, we have to, be the same way. Of course, emotions are going to run rampant. Emotions are going to run high when we're in the midst of, going through certain things. It's not whatever. But we also have to remember who we are, and remember that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They are mighty through the Most High. So when we fight with spiritual weapons. We fight in prayers. We don't cease in praying. We don't cease in the meditation of the scripts. We don't cease in being before the Most High. We have to continue in these things. And the Most High is hearing our prayers, y'all. He's hearing our prayers, just like, again, Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. So, just like in the time of Egypt, right? He heard the cries of our people. We were in slavery then, because of an evil dictatorship, an evil Pharaoh, right? And the text says that, he heard the cries of our people. We were lamenting being in slavery. He heard our cries and he remembered the covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So, in our time, in this captivity, in our times of trouble and anguish and things of that nature, we have to remember who we serve. We have to remember who we serve. We're here for a reason, unfortunately. And we have to make the best of it as far as, living here and surviving, with our 9 to 5s, our being on the plantation and this and that, whatever. And we have many troubles, this and that, whatever. But we serve the Most High, y'all. We serve the Most High. So we have to, call upon him. He tells us, not to cease in praying. Pray without ceasing. Continue to call upon him. Continue to keep these laws, statutes, commandments. Continue to be diligent in our prayer life, diligent in our meditations, in our reading, in our seeking him. And he will hear our cry. And in his appointed time, he will send Mashiach and his angels to rescue us. So, like I said, I always love reading, the testimony of Hadasah and Mordecai and pray that, someone was truly barak by it, or blessed or whatever. But any comments, any questions, any concerns? Absolutely, Sister Mo. We most definitely are. Just like Mashiach told us in Matthew was that 4:4, and I think in Deuteronomy 8:3, Mashiach basically repeated and said, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of from the Most High shall man live. So that's what we feast on. We don't just feast on natural bread and provision. We feast on every word and hang on every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Most High, that we may live. All praises. So with that, family, we are at the end of that. Anyone else has any questions, comments, concerns, anything they want to share?
Yes, I do, but it's not related to this. Next week we'll be meeting at my building in Garner. Myron will be giving a lesson, and I really appreciate it if you could come, family. West Coast people, this time you have an excuse. Maybe next time we get you too. But anyway, I'd love to see everybody there, and I'll send something out in HHI.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was definitely going to mention that too, sis. Thank you for that. Yeah, so next week we'll actually be in Garner. I will still be online. We're still going to have the Zoom. Instead of 12, it'll be starting at 1 o'clock Eastern time. So that Trav and Chris, that's like 10 o'clock your time, I believe.
Yeah.
10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be starting at 1 p.m. next week, and I'll still have the Zoom open, even though we'll be out in Garner. I'll still have the Zoom open. All praises. And yeah, thank you, Chris, for. We have again Chris and Trav's study as well, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern time, at 12 their time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. All praises. And of course, we know no study tomorrow, and I think next week as far as Sunday. So again, family, we always have nourishment. We always have nourishment, and it's always a beautiful time to be able to fellowship and come together. And like I said, even if it's just reading the text, there's always something to learn. There's always something to be gained. So family, appreciate y'all. With that, we are going to close out, if I could have, if possible, hey Trav, can you close us out, bro? If you're available.
I already knew you was gonna ask, man. You know we got the same spirit. I already knew you was gonna. I'll wait for you to say my name, man. I already knew.
All praises, all praises.
No, I got you though. All praise, all praise. Dear y'all, I thank you for assembling us to another Shabbat today. I thank you for all who were recorded today, who were here. I pray that you be with those who weren't able to make it as well. I pray that you cleanse any health or any ailments anyone is dealing with, or anybody's families or friends are dealing with at this very moment. Thank you for directing this study. Thank you for the leaders in place to direct it as well. Actually, you continue to be with us the rest of this week. Continue to pour your wisdom on each and every one of us. Continue to remove the scales from our eyes and our ears as we continue to seek your truth daily. Again, I just want to thank you for all the blessings in our lives. I ask that you forgive us for any wrongdoings or any sins we've committed unintentionally. Again, y'all, I thank you for this study. In your son name, Yeshua, we pray. Amen.
Man. All praises, all praises. So thank y'all, family, for gathering in the living room. Pray everyone's day is ashar, is happy, is Barak, which is blessed. Continue to enjoy your day in the Most High. We love y'all, family. Shalom.
Shalom.